Welcome, good afternoon. My name is Marco Russo. I'm here today to talk about Power BI, and in particular, Power BI, the dashboards in Power BI. As you may already know, Microsoft recently released a preview of the new version of Power BI. There is already one in the market. This session is about the new version of Power BI. And I will try to not go too much into the wow effect. This is not the goal of my session. The goal of my session is to explain you what is Power BI, what are the directions, as soon as for what I can say, and to explain you what is behind. Trying to explain you how it works, what you can do today, what you could do soon, because some feature is still not available, but Microsoft already publicly announced that they will be, and probably something will happen also in the future. Let me just start with a small presentation about myself, and then we will start talking about this service. As I said, I'm Marco Russo. I worked with analysis services since 1999, too many years ago. I don't count more than 3 years in the past because it's, it seems I'm a little bit old, and so I try not to do this count. I wrote a lot of books and articles about analysis services. You can find most of my work on www.sqlbi.com. So, before starting, I'd like to know how many of you know the current version of Power BI for Office 365? Raise your hands. OK. How many of you actually use this version of Power BI? Very few. How many of you have seen, maybe in a video, in a presentation, the new version of Power BI? Half of you. OK. How many of you actually tried to use the new version of Power BI? Good. So I'm not the only one that do the Italian trick of getting a US account from Europe. This is nice. Good point. OK, so I will show you a demo very soon, and most of the time I will spend is on demos. But before starting, I would like to clarify one thing that sometimes Microsoft don't clarify enough. They are so, they're so used to think about their vision, they sometimes forgot to explain. Power BI, the new Power BI, has the goal to be a unified experience to access any data on any device, anytime, anywhere, which is pretty much an ambitious thing. And if you take a look at what we have today, we are still not there. But this is the direction where Microsoft is going. And this should be important to clarify one thing. What Power BI is not, I mean, it's easy to say what is or what it should be, but Power BI is not a replacement for your current solution of business intelligence. This is an important point. If you get this, you understand and you will appreciate what Microsoft is doing. If you think about, OK, I'm going to replace my Tableau, reporting services, performance point, you have to wait several months, if not years. Because in order to go there, there are many features to add. And we are definitely not there today. So today is not a replacement for what you have, but is a tool for doing something that you today don't have. That's the point. So the first demo that I want to show you is something that seems a little bit strange, because fundamentally, Microsoft says you have to be able to log in 5 seconds and to do the first dashboard in 5 minutes. 5 minutes is pretty much a short time, especially because most of the time you spend is to prepare data, not to do dashboard. So what is a common data source that you might have? And let's go to the demo machine. This is what you may have already seen. For those of you that have already seen a demo of Power BI, you will have probably seen this dashboard, which is the sample dashboard that you get when you log in the first time. It's a sample workbook that contains some data. And if you've never seen Power BI dashboard before, we will build something similar in the next hour. But what is the 5-minute demo? Fundamentally, is the following. Let's start with this workbook in Excel. You know, you have a lot of data in Excel, and in this example, in this example, I forgot to run the Zoom it, sorry. I spent time doing the setup and forgot the most important thing, which is the following. I have a set of numbers. What are these numbers? In some way, I obtained, for example, numbers from Google Analytics. This is the number of requests. Sorry, this is not Google Analytics. This is the analysis of the log file of a website that we have, which tracks the number of requests per day that we had on a website. What is this website? This one. We have a website that is called DAX Formatter. It's an editor for DAX, fundamentally, that provides you the ability to pass a query here and to click Format and to get your query formatted. Every time you do that, we log, OK, you did something at this time. So we know that we serviced a request. How many requests we serviced? This number. Yes, I know. It would be nice to see how we moved the numbers from the original service to this Excel workbook. But this is not the point. Power BI is not for doing the ETL today. We don't have any tool. So let's start from the final result. We have an Excel file that we obtained something, and this file is just an Excel file, nothing else. And remember, we have date, request, average duration. So how many milliseconds each request required for the backend. We also have the monthly usage. So we have 2 tables in an Excel workbook. Okay, so this is the starting point. So let's see what we can do in Power BI. And I don't want you to explain anything else, just because the idea is that you should see what is possible to do in Power BI without knowing anything. So first, I made a login, and the login should be 5 seconds. You put your email. In Europe, it is not available, unfortunately, but in a few, maybe days, if not weeks, it will be. And as soon as it will be available, you will be able to put your email and get an account entering here. Now, let's start our 5-minute demo. Get data. I have a list of data sources that are available. Excel, Power BI Designer, SQL Server, and other cloud services. We will talk about this later. We have the simplest one, Excel Workbook. Connect. I choose a file from my hard disk. I have in my folder here, let me copy this here, I have my DAX Formatter usage, which is exactly the workbook that you have seen before. Now I'm importing data. Importing the data means that I copied the content of the Excel workbook on the cloud, somewhere in a Microsoft Azure server. Now we have this data here, DAX Formatter usage number 2, and we can start browsing the data. For those of you that have already seen Power BI or that have already seen Excel with Excel 2013, this is like Power View. We have here on the right the list of tables and measures and columns that we have available. And we can just click on this and say, OK, I want to see by year month the number of requests. And I want to see this as a line chart. And now I have my trend. These are the requests by month on our service. And I want to create the same thing here, looking at the daily data. So this is by date. So I have 2 nice charts here. And I want to see also the average duration. So let me get this one here. And I want to see this by year and month. And for example, I may want to compare the year data by legend. So this is OK, but this is not what I want to do. This one. Not the average duration here. Let me see. OK, let's do this one. Value should be the average duration here. OK, not really nice. This is not what I want to do. This is what I want to do. OK, let's get this one. So I have these numbers. I have these charts. The idea is that this is a very, very poor set of data, because in theory, at this point, I could use any of this bar to filter my data, but as soon as I filter some data, I just filter part of the data in other charts, but at this time, it doesn't make sense. This is a too simple data model. Let me just go back to the original one. I can decide to pin a few of this information to my dashboard, because what I'm doing now is creating a sort of Power View report. You can add other pages of data, and in each page, you can create other visualization. Now, what Microsoft usually do at this point is start to show you how many different visualization we have. I will show you some of them later. And of course, these are much more than the ones that are available in Power View today. What you can do at this point, you can pin this one to a dashboard. But before of that, I have to save my report, because I created a report now, so a way to display data. I call this the report DAX formatter usage number 2, save. And now I can decide to pin my object. For example, every object that I have here can be pinned to a dashboard. What is the dashboard? The dashboard is fundamentally a repository, a canvas in this case, where I can add other objects. As you see, we added this here now, and I see my trend, which is from one data source, which is my Excel file, together with other objects that comes from other data sources, other data models. And here, this is not interactive. But the point is that the goal is to make able an user that has some data to draw this data in a very, very short amount of time. If you think about what I did, actually, I created a data model. I created a Power Pivot data model, sort of, on the cloud, based on my data, but I never had to open Power Pivot. Of course, the number of things that I can do if I have a few number of columns and a few tables is relatively small if compared with other more complex data models. But this is the goal, making able people to approach this tool very easily, and not to get the data that you already have in your on-prem servers. This is one part of the goal. But the main goal is to enable users to get any data they have on their Excel workbook, data they have on other cloud services that they use. If you remember, there was a list of cloud services that we can use. So let me go back for a few seconds to the slides, but as I said, I will spend more time on the demo. So the idea is, first, we create a data model. Actually, I didn't create a data model, because the service created the data model for me on the cloud. But I can get the control of the data model. I can use some tool, like, for example, Power Pivot or the new Power BI Designer, to create a more sophisticated data model. Once I put this data model on the cloud, I can create one or more reports. Reports are a set of visualizations that you can use to display in a single page data coming from the same data model. One report, one data model. Then you can get a few of these visualizations and put them on a dashboard. The dashboard is not interactive. We can put a slicer, we can put filters on a report. We cannot do that on a dashboard today. And the dashboard is not dynamic, but the dashboard can include visualizations coming from different reports, which means that can get data coming from different data models. Okay? So this is an important concept to understand. So let's try to see another example. This time we will do something more complex. And for example, we can start creating a Power Pivot data model. So Power Pivot data model, I have already, one that I already created, this one. A Power Pivot data model can have data coming from different data sources. We can get data not only from one database, but from different databases. And in Power Pivot, you can use also Power Query. to transform data. So today, Excel 2013 with Power Query and Power Pivot, and maybe also Power View, you can already create your own local visualization, local data model, local transformation, and you can simply push this on the cloud. What is this data model? This data model is created in this way. We have a few tables that comes from a database called Contoso. Contoso is like AdventureWorks. It is just another fictitious company created by Microsoft that sells computers and other stuff in different stores over the United States and other countries. And so this time, my data model is more complex. We have several tables. We have sales. We have customer, products, stores, and so on. Fundamentally, this is a star schema, nothing more than that. But we also include several measures. If we take a look at the data model, you see that we have a few measures defined here and others in other tables that makes our visualization more complex. If you create a data model on the cloud today in Power BI, you are not able to introduce DAX calculations, whereas in Power Pivot you can. You can define also relatively complex visualization. Once you have that, you can browse your data in Excel with a pivot table like this one, but this is not the visualization that we want to obtain. Today, we don't have the visualization of the pivot table in the new Power BI. You may wonder, Marco, but we have the ability to publish a workbook on the current version of Power BI, and we have all the features of Excel. This will be available as soon as the new Power BI will be released. In the preview, this is still not available. So I cannot say, I want to publish this pivot table. This is something that you cannot do today. But I hope in a couple of months or relatively soon, when Microsoft will release the service to the public, this will be a feature available. I will be able to say, I want to publish this worksheet, because all the features that you have in Power BI today will be available in the new Power BI. But today, you may not have in the preview all of these features. So what I can do with this Contoso file? Well, I can upload this Contoso Excel file to my Power BI environment. And once I do that, you see that I have a data set. So the data set, when you load data, you create a data set. The data set is the connection with your data that you have in Power BI. As you see, I already loaded this. In fact, I have this Contoso 100 here. And when you click here, you can schedule the refresh or forcing the refresh now, providing that you are using a data source that can be refreshed. We will talk about which ones can be refreshed in a moment. And we can simply, for example, explore it. Explore means I create a report on top of this data set. So I created a new report. I'm creating a new report on top of this data set. Remember, since I created where is my, OK. Since I created my workbook locally, I had my data locally. When I uploaded the Excel file with the Power Pivot data model, I uploaded all the data into the cloud. I have a copy of the data into the cloud. When I schedule the refresh on the cloud has to connect with my data sources, for example, with the data management gateway, grabbing the data and updating the data model in the cloud. Once I have the data in the cloud, I have the user experience of navigating into my report for all the tables and all the entities. At this point, you can start creating something more useful, because I have many more information. For example, I could decide to see, let me check. I can, for example, I can get the cost by country. I want to see by country the sales. So let me show the sales amount. So I remove the yearly income, and I put the sales amount. So my data model knows that the country column in the customers table defines an object that is related to the country geographical entity, And because of that, the service immediately recognizes that and say, oh, the best visualization should be a map. And you can also use other visualization, like, for example, these other coloring areas, which is a really nice one, because as you see, you can color depending on the value of the data. The higher the value, the darker the color. You can see the visualization displayed in this way. You can, of course, continue to put other data. For example, I could put the product brand here. And the product brand could be, this is the sales of the product brand. This is the weight. No, the weight is not useful, because the engine tries to look for a measure in the same table. So when you have a more complex data model, you always have to click and looking for the right data. So in this case, this is the visualization of the sales amount by brand. Now, what happens if I click on a brand? Of course, this filters all the others visualization. And so in this case, I will see in which countries I sell more of this or of this. Probably there are not so many differences, because this display on a map is a relative visualization. But of course, I can continue to create other pages and other entities in my visualization. As I said, my goal is not to display all the fancy visualization. And for this reason, I prefer to go back to the report that I already created and show you the Contoso one here. Show you a report that I created before. As you see, we have a tree map, we have a different type of visualization, we can have different pages. I have 2 pages here, and so my pages become something that I can navigate in this way. You can also have this combo visualization. If you have seen some demo from Microsoft, what they already showed is that the ability that you can have by doing this stuff, you can separate the 2 charts. As you see, you have a line chart and a bar chart that you can combine together. Okay, it is nice having this feature, but it's not my goal to display this kind of features. My goal is to explain you what you can really do. And for example, you see here that I have a slicer. So I can filter the slicer. By filtering the slicer, I filter also the other visualization. So I'm in a report. A report is a set of visualization displayed in different pages, connecting to the same dataset. One dataset, one report. Many reports can be connected to the same dataset, but one report can have data only from one dataset. Of course, one dataset can get data from different databases, but you have to create the model upfront in Power Pivot, for example. Once you have this visualization, again, what you can do, you can decide to pin some of this visualization to the dashboard. So if you go to the dashboard, how it works? Well, going to the dashboard, it's interesting to see one thing. As you have seen, you have a very poor user interface in terms of controlling what you are really doing. You cannot control the colors, the fonts, and other stuff. They will probably add this in the future, but today we don't have control of that. Now, I have different dashboards. How can I define? When I pin to the dashboard, I cannot say to which dashboard. So the idea is that the last dashboard that you used is the one where you put the object that you pin into the dashboard. So in other words, if I click on Contoso here, then I go to the Contoso sample, and then I decide to pin to the dashboard this object, for example, here. Now, this one has been put here in my dashboard. Now, it's the same that I had here. But if you remember, this was not here before. Now, the fact that it's put here is just because this was the last one that was open, that was selected. So if I want to put an object to another dashboard, I have to remember, let me remember, I have to go here. I want to add something into this retail analysis sample. Then I go to my Contoso sample, and then I pin to the dashboard. Okay, so this is the interaction that we have. Again, this could change in the future. Today, let me see, I click on pin. Today, this is the type of user interface that you have. And we see that we have pinned these 2 copies of this map here. You don't like it, you can simply delete this one. Okay? Or you can modify this by simply editing the title, which is by default the measure and the slicer that, the dimension that you are using. And you can rename the content that is displayed here. This is the level of interaction that you have today with the dashboard. So what we have seen up to now. We have seen that you have data sets. A data set is the connection to one or more data sources. You can have more data sources when you have a model that has different connections, like, for example, a Power Pivot data model. If you don't import a data model that you created with Power BI Designer or Power Pivot, you can create it automatically, because you connect to some data sources and something on the cloud creates the data model for you. The report is something that connects to one data set. And you have all the features, all the designing features that you have in Power View. The engine that runs the current version of the reports and also of the dashboard is different than the one that you have seen in Excel or in Power BI for Office 365. They rewrote completely the engine, and the reason for doing that is that Microsoft wants to add many visualizations to Power BI in the future. How? By allowing people, by allowing partners to create new visualizations. So this is the long-term goal, enabling adding my own visualization into the Power BI, the Power BI dashboard. So this is what the report is supposed to do. And the report is interactive. You can click on something, filter something, and you can navigate into data. But when you pin something to a dashboard, what you get is a static visualization. And the static visualization is somewhat rigid, so you cannot browse data. But in reality, there is one feature that is the same feature that you have today in Power BI for Office 365 that is called Q&A, which is the following. If you remember, I imported, let me start from my DAX formatter here, DAX formatter usage. I have imported my information about the requests that have been made to my service. So if I type here, show request, I see this. And fundamentally, when you type a question, Q&A look for data into the data models that are connected to this dashboard. Q&A work at the dashboard level, and the data set that is considering are the data sets of the reports that contains the items, the visualization that you included into the dashboard. So in this case, my dashboard has only one connection with one file, and so the domain that I'm looking into is limited to this boundary of data. Of course, if I go to a more interesting data source, for example, Contoso, as you see, when I type a question here, I could see show sales amount by country. And you see, oh, by model, brand. I don't remember. OK, brand is something that we have. So as you see, we obtain a single visualization that we can pin to the dashboard at this point. And when you have a single number, show sales amount, in 2008, I'm applying a filter to this number. So I created a query in English, in plain English language, and I can pin this number to my dashboard. So if you wonder how can I obtain in my dashboard the number that you see there, this is the way to go. You don't have a way to manually select a number to put in the dashboard. The only interface that you have today is using Q&A. But of course, Q&A can also generate a map, can also generate a line chart, or something that you can further edit in the report that you can generate in this way. So, limitation of the dashboard is that you cannot drill down, You cannot navigate. What you can do is actually do a drill through. So fundamentally, if I click on a tile, for example, this one, I click here, what happened, I have a link that points me to the report where I have interaction. I can, at this point, click on a slicer. So you don't have the slicer in the dashboard, you can have the slicer in the report. So this is the way it works. Sorry. So this is nice, but this is just another visualization tool. Yes, if you consider this as only as a visualization tool, it could be limited today. But in reality, you should consider Power BI as, remember, show the data from any data source in any device at any time. Which means, what if I have a data model on my server on-premise? What if I have a cube in analysis services or a tabular model in analysis services? Well, Microsoft already announced that they will support analysis services multidimensional, but they already support in the preview analysis services tabular. So what I'm going to show you now is the following. I have a server here where I'm running analysis services. So here I can have any data. This is an on-prem server. So this is actually a server that is in a physical position. Now, technically now I'm using a virtual machine on Azure, but I could use a server in my office, in my server farm. And I have here a database with AdventureWorks tabular model. But I could have any other database in tabular. Now, so I have users using this on-prem server. Everything is working. And I want to enable my user to use this data source from Power BI. What I have to do? First, I have to go here, and I have to create a new data set. And creating a new data set, I have to go in SQL Server Analysis Services and say, OK, I want to connect. And as you see, I already have tabular demo, which is my server there. Why I have this here? Because before doing that, I downloaded the Analysis Services Connector Preview, which is a software that I have to run in my network. It could be on a different server than my analysis services. In this case, it's running on the same analysis services server. And once I do that, I can connect to this data source, and I can select between the different perspectives and databases that I have. So for example, I connect to the model, so the main model, and I connect. What happened at this point, I created a connection here that creates a new report that browses my data model. And in order to show you that I'm not lying, I have the profiler. So if I create a report here, and I, for example, put the internet sales, let me see, total sales, and then I put the education of the customer here, as you see, we have queries that are running on my server when I'm doing my evaluation. So actually, I don't have a copy of my data on the cloud. My data are still on my server. Yes, the server on the cloud runs a query, extract only the result of the query in order to display the data in the visualization, but is not copying the entire set of data on the cloud. So I understand, I hope to have time for the question, because I know, especially in Europe, that there are many concerns about the usage of cloud services applied to on-premises data. Where we are here, because actually the data are on your server, and you are using an external service for doing the visualization, what is the law that we can apply? What are the policies? Big question open, I know. But this is the situation. So we have this chance, this option today. we can also create models in other ways. Remember, get data from any data source, from any device. What if a user doesn't have or don't want to use Excel? Many companies don't have Excel 2013. Many companies still have Excel 2010. But they would like to use this service. Or they might have a version of Excel 2013 that is in 32-bit and is too small, 32-bit is too small to handle the data for a large data model, for example. So Microsoft also provides a local experience for creating a data model. And if you see here, you also have the Power BI Designer preview. What is? You download and install this application. This is a desktop application. And fundamentally is this object. Power BI Designer Preview is fundamentally what? Power Pivot, Power Query, Power View outside of Excel. That's the idea. So fundamentally, you can get data from a data source. So when you create a model here, you can say, OK, I want to connect to SQL Server. For example, I connect to my local SQL Server. And I have the same user interface of Power Query. I can select a few tables from AdventureWorks. For example, I select demo sales, products, and customers, and order date. So I selected four tables, and I can load these four tables, or I can edit the query. But if I click Load, what happens is that the content of these four tables is copied into the Power BI Designer data model. When I save the data model, when I save the file here, the result, I will save a file on disk. So if I click on File, Save As, I save a file, demo, open, demo rally, SQLRally. And this file, let me show you. I forgot where I saved this file, sorry. Here. OK. Oh, here, this one. As you see, we have 5 MB, because I have a copy of the data now. It's like Excel. I'm just using this tool without Excel. This tool is for free. You don't have to pay any license to anyone. And it is compatible with any version of Excel, because fundamentally it's not related to Excel or to Office in any way. Once I have my data loaded here, I already have the user interface of Power View. You don't have the pivot table at this point, but you have the Power View experience. So you can create the same dashboards, the same reports with the same set of data that you can create on the cloud, or you can create using, sorry, I'm trying to look. I probably loaded too much things here. I have, OK, let's get the total children. OK, just to get a number. And I can continue to display visualization. As you see, we have the choice of visualization here. So we have a local experience. But in reality, the engine that we are using here is the same HTML5 engine that runs also in the cloud. So once I publish this workbook, I will have the same user experience. If I want to change the query, we have this editor. Oh, I probably selected many more tables that I wanted. So we have all these tables here, and we can apply all the transformation and all the features of Power Query. This is the same set of tools of Power Query. And when you are in the report, you can also manage the relationships. You may realize that there is still something missing here, which is how can I add a measure? How can I add a calculation, a calculated column? Today, you can manipulate data with Power Query, but you cannot add information with DAX. We cannot add a semantic layer with DAX. Do you want a percentage? Do you want a ratio? Wait some version that will have the ability to introduce DAX measures. There is no user interface today to introduce DAX measures in the Power BI Designer, but is a very high priority request for Microsoft. So I hope it will be released very soon. So as it is today, we have some limitation here. Because once I upload this to the cloud, and so I go back here, I obtain this. So I created a Power BI Designer file that I can open here. So I have another file that I prepared before. The local experience with Power BI Designer does not require any subscription or any login to any service. It just works. Locally, it just works. It's only when you want to share this with someone else or you want to automate the refresh of the data and you want to go to the cloud that you do what? Once you have this file, you can go here and you can add data, this time getting data from the Power BI Designer file. So when you click Connect, you browse the data, you select, for example, Demo SQLRally, open, and my 5 megabyte workbook is now uploaded to the cloud, hopefully, yes, and I will be able to navigate it. Once I do this upload, I can also automate the refresh. So let me go back to the slides while we upload our file. Oh, I just finished. Good. And we can see, come on. No, this one. OK, data refresh. So what about the refresh? Because if we have data on-prem and we are just connecting from the cloud to our on-prem server, we have fundamentally a real-time update because the refresh depends on our server. And if you use analysis services with direct query, for example, you have a real-time analysis of your data. However, if you want to upload data like Excel files, Power Pivot data models, or Power BI Designer data models, then you have a copy of the data on the cloud, and you may want to schedule a refresh of the data. You can do that at the dataset level, but you have to figure out if the actual source of data is supported or not. The idea is that you will be able to refresh any data source. Today, there are many limitations. If you upload a Power Pivot data model, it only refreshes data sources that you created with Power Query. So if you directly get data from SQL, like I did before, it will not be able to refresh. But this should work because this is supported in the current version of Power BI for Office 365, so it will be supported here too. But today, in the preview, it is still not supported. All the cloud services, data sources should be able to be refreshed automatically on the cloud, and all the data sources that you use in the Power BI Designer. Moreover, if you save an Excel file on OneDrive and you import data like I did before from an Excel file, as soon as you refresh the Excel file on your OneDrive connection, it should be refreshed in Power BI too. Still not working, but Microsoft said that this will work. And not only this will work with OneDrive, possibly it will work also with Dropbox and other services. And so fundamentally, the idea is to go in a direction where you fundamentally can schedule any refresh. Today, you are very limited because you have to use Power Query, and only a few data sources of Power Query are supported now. But this will change. This could change in 2 days. So Microsoft could release a new release maybe Thursday or Friday, and I will have to refresh my slides too. But this is expected. So two things that I want to show you now are, we talked about refresh. We talked about refresh, and so we can see that the refresh is fundamentally available by going here. For example, I created a connection getting data from SQL Azure. SQL Azure is one of the currently supported data sources. And for example, I created, I think, this workbook that gets data from SQL Azure. So here, let me go to the Power Pivot data model. This is my data model. As you see, I imported a single table, that this Northway sales by category, which is a view on a SQL Azure database. And let me check if I imported this with, yes, I imported this with Power Query in reality. Why I did this with Power Query? Because otherwise the refresh would not work. Once I have imported this table that has a very simple set of data, I created this connection here. And this connection here, I forgot where it is. Here's this one. SQL Azure, okay. I can schedule the refresh here. And schedule refresh, no, it's not this one. Probably oh, this one, Azure, this one. As you see, oops, this is enabled, and you can schedule the refresh daily or weekly. So this is the type of refresh that you can handle. It's similar, very similar to the Power BI for Office 365. You can edit the credential. And as you see, many others of these are not supported now. So when you see this window is not supported, it's because we are in a combination of data connection and other things that are not supported. We can get data from other data sources. We have many cloud services, like, for example, Salesforce, SendGrid, Zendesk, GitHub. So all these services already have data on the cloud. And if our data is already on the cloud, the problem of analyzing this data in Power BI is not a problem, because data are already on the cloud. We just move data between different cloud services. And the integration that we have here today is made with a limited number of data sources. But imagine that you can implement your own application here. You can implement your own service here with something that Microsoft still didn't release, but that will come. So Microsoft already created these services. And for example, we have SendGrid. What is SendGrid? SendGrid is a service to deliver email. And for example, in SQLBI.com, we use SendGrid to deliver our newsletter every 2 months, every 2 weeks. What happened when we deliver the newsletter? You know, we deliver email, and we have information about how many emails we sent, how many have been opened, how many times someone clicked, and something like that. So if I connect to SendGrid, and I put my credential, or credentials that I created in SendGrid just for analysis, so I have only read access permission for that, you fundamentally have to specify username and password for your service. Once you do that, you obtain this. You obtain, let me go back here, one data set, which is obvious, the connection to. One data model, so somebody created the data model for me, and you can browse this data model into one report. And this report also has a few items already created in a dashboard. So when I show you the dashboard, I didn't create this dashboard. When I put my username and password, I already obtained this with my data. As you see, every 2 weeks, we have a number of requests, a number of open, and a number of click. And I see all of this in my dashboard. When I click on this, I go in the report where I have this information. And I have many more details here because somebody created this report for me. We have 6 pages, and I can also edit this report. So if I don't like I don't like, the way they display data, I will go here and I will change the content. For example, here, a genius created this chart, where, as you can see, the number of clicks and the number of unique clicks are summed together. Very smart. You know, the number of unique clicks should be a subset of the number of clicks. So probably the right thing to do this is to use another visualization, probably, I think, this one, which makes more sense. But more important, okay, this is a bug of the example they created for this visualization. More interesting is what you see in the right pane. Fundamentally, who created the report also created a data model. So now this is my visualization, makes more sense. And I have here the list of all the measures and all the columns that I can include in my report. Fundamentally, the data model, the data model contains the value, the relationship, the measures over the data. The data model has been created by someone else, and my user can just browse the data with the report. When I think about the ability to provide a semantic model over data of an application, of a service, that a user can browse by just clicking one button and providing username and password. This is very interesting because today I haven't seen anything similar to that in the market. Yes, the Power BI service today doesn't have all the visualization, all the features that I want. I'm the first one to ask for many more features. It's not ready for the prime time. But if you think about the platform, and this time the platform is open for ISV, for partners, this is much more interesting. And I think this is the point where you should look at when you think about Power BI. Don't think it as a tool that is going to replace something that you already have. Not yet. Maybe in 2 years. I don't know. So, let me see if I said everything. OK, so just to recap. We have fundamentally the Power BI service. The Power BI service can get data from on-premises data sources or cloud data sources. And we can browse data in the browser, like we did now, any browser, any device, because fundamentally it is just HTML. It doesn't use Silverlight or Flash or other stuffs. But if you have a tablet or a phone, a smartphone, you may want a different experience, different user experience. And this is what is going to happen very soon. In reality, our friends in the United States already tried the mobile clients. This time I was not able, because I don't have an account for a mobile client, to get the application down from the store. But today, Microsoft already released a preview of the client application for iPad and iPhone. And Microsoft already announced that they will support the native application also for Android and Windows Phone. And why the application is important? Because the application provides a better user experience browsing data, fundamentally. It adapts your tiles of your dashboard to the device. So instead of looking at the design that you created, you just see the tiles that you have in the same dashboard, one after the other. So you have a better user experience to browse, and you can create alerts. On your mobile device, you can say, OK, when this number go above this limit, send me an alert. And this is a feature that is available by now only in the mobile platform. What about sharing? I create my dashboard. I like it, and I want to share this dashboard with someone else. Fundamentally, you have this button in the dashboard, which is a share. Let me see here. When you click share, you can say, OK, I want to share this with, for example, my friend Alberto, SQLRally.com. However, hello from Copenhagen. Problem is that when I click enter, I can also say if Alberto can share this dashboard with someone else. Absolutely no, I don't trust him. And I can click share. Now, the problem is that today I'm using a tenant that doesn't include Alberto, and more important, doesn't include the SQLRally.com email addresses here. Because fundamentally, the idea is that you can share this with someone else in your organization. And today, I'm using a demo that is on a different tenant and is not part of my organization. This is interesting because sometimes I would like to share a dashboard with someone that is outside of my organization. And I don't know if Microsoft is going to support that, but this is something that I already asked to Microsoft, because not only me, but other people said, yes, but sometime it would be nice if I'm able to also include people outside of my organization to do that. Of course, there is a question about the licensing. Because the Power BI services that you have seen are absolutely free if you use them alone. I mean, if you don't want to share with anyone, it's fundamentally free. Microsoft published a web page in the powerbi.com site, you have a pricing guide. And usually I don't talk about pricing, but in this case I have to make an exception because the point is that this is what people are called to use freemium. So it's free at the beginning, and then after a while you start to say, okay, let's start to pay something. And fundamentally it's free if you want to store up to 1 gigabyte of data on the cloud, which is actually not a small amount. You can schedule a refresh daily, and you can also push data 10,000 rows per hour. I didn't include in my presentation a demo, which is about real-time dashboards. A real-time dashboard is a dashboard that you don't do anything, and you see numbers changing. Why? Because someone is pushing data into the dashboard. There are many limitations today doing that, especially because you cannot fundamentally add measures to that data model, and so you can only have sum of a number, which is not really useful for complex dashboards. But if you want to just show the number of clicks or the number of votes that you have in a web page, that's fine. Financial numbers, I don't know. But this is going to change, of course. And when this will change, the paid service will be able to refresh 1 million rows per hour. Is an interesting number. If you think about transactions that you have, you may push all the transactions of certain shops or certain chain of shops that you have, and you are still below this limit. And you can have real-time dashboards updating everywhere. It's interesting. And also the refresh time could be 1 hour. And then, of course, you have the ability to collaborate with other people in the organization. This is only in the paid version, but the paid version is $10 per month per user. So the point is that if they allow you to share to someone else outside of your organization, what about the price? So I think this is the problem of making a decision about how to handle that, how to define how to pay for this. But this price is actually interesting because if you think about what is in the market, it is actually an interesting price for the features that we should expect to see once the product is released. Because remember, today is still in preview. So, conclusion. Power BI is about visualization of data, but is a completely cloud-based service. It's not available on premises. And I don't know if they will never build an on-prem version of Power BI. We have to ask to Microsoft. Today, they are only talking about the cloud version. We can talk about hybrid solutions, so the ability to get data from on-premises services and to push data on the cloud. And most important, even if the number of API available today is very limited, as I said, the scenario of the real-time dashboard, in reality, the API that Microsoft announced but still not released, like the ability to create packages for different data sources published on the cloud, or the ability to customize visualization, is something that is very, very interesting if it will enable partners and ISV to extend the service made by Microsoft. Thank you very much for attending. If you have any question, I think I have 1 or 2 minutes available, or otherwise you can stop me below the stage. Thank you very much. Yeah, I will repeat the question, so don't. Yes. Okay, this is an interesting question. What about the security, and in particular the role-based security? If you are connecting to analysis services on premises, the connection that you make is made by using the user that is connected to this service. So actually it works. Because the username that I used for my service is the username, the effective username that is included in a connection string made to analysis services. From a physical point of view, the connection to analysis services is made by another user, but this user impersonated the user that you have on the cloud. So fundamentally, this makes This makes the role-based security working in analysis services. And it already works. This is more important. Other questions? Nobody. OK. Thank you very much again. See you.